Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Black Baseball Mixtape. I am your host, Cheats, and this is Mixtape Talk. As always, these talks are brought to you by the Family Podcast Network. And joining me today is a very special guest. I've got Tyrone Brooks, Major League Baseball. I'm going to say this right. We were just laughing about this before we started recording, but it is front office and field staff senior director for the Diversity Pipeline of Major League Baseball. Did I get it right?
Pretty close. You're pretty close. Yeah, pretty close.
Well, I tried so hard. I've been practicing.
Senior director, front office, and field staff, Diversity Pipeline Program.
Man, I'm going to tell you, I was saying right before we jumped on that I've been having conversations about Black baseball for a year now. I never get nervous. I don't. I love talking to people. I love talking to people about baseball. I love talking to people about diversity and inclusion and all the things I love. And I never get nervous about it. However, when I started looking through your career, Tyrone, and I started looking through kind of what you are tasked with doing for Major League Baseball, I got a little nervous. And I got a little nervous because I really do believe that I am speaking to, if not the man very, very close to the eye of the storm. When I say that, I mean almost responsible for, I guess so, heading a division that's responsible for increasing diversity at all levels of baseball, increasing women participation, Black participation, all the things we read about in the news. It sounds like a daunting task. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to explain, one, the extra long title for one, and then exactly tell the people what you've been tasked with since 2016 of doing for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, Chiefs, for me and for a lot of people, it started as kids, and that's a big part of what the work we're trying to do is making sure kids get access to the game and having that chance to have people that they can look up to, people that they can touch and feel, and that are in our game and that want to engage them. That is so important. We've got a lot of really great people that I get a chance to work with and collaborate with throughout. My scope is mainly on the employment side, getting people into that aspect of getting into the game, starting jobs, looking at, career. But there's so much that's so connected to it, which is a great part of my role. For a lot of people, it started, just playing the game as a kid. I was 5 years old when I first started playing. And I think also just having that first opportunity to be in a major league stadium is so pivotal. And I think back to when I was 5 years old, I got my first chance to go to a major league game, which was in Baltimore.
Was it Memorial Park?
Memorial Stadium back in the day. Yeah, Memorial Stadium back in 1979, which was a great year for the Orioles.
I love it.
That year they ended up made the World Series against the Pirates. And it's funny how my world with Pittsburgh and Baltimore crossed.
That's right. You can talk about that. Yeah.
But just getting a chance to, I still remember my very first game going with my dad, my mom, my brother, and we're sitting like in the upper deck at Memorial Stadium. And the one thing that truly resonates from that whole day and that experience, which I still get a chance to bring up, is when I looked out on the field, I saw individuals on the field that looked just like me. And that's a huge thing. And that's where we got to continue to keep building toward and keep growing the game that way, by kids seeing themselves reflected there on the field, and also in front offices as GMs, as owners. But I remember back then during that time, and when I looked out, I saw Eddie Murray, I saw Ken Singleton, I saw Al Bunbury. I saw players that looked just like me. So for me, that made a huge impression on me. And Eddie Murray ended up being he's still my favorite player of all time. And it's funny how, with watching his whole career, being there as a kid, and wherever he went, I started following that club. Whether he went to the Mets, went to the Dodgers, working for Cleveland, he was with Cleveland, just was following his career because of the impact he had on me as a kid. And it's funny how it all kind of came full circle for me this past summer. I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame this summer for the induction ceremony. And for the first time in my life, and it took 40 plus years, but I finally met my
Are
idol.
you kidding
I
me?
met my idol. And
What?
I met Eddie Murray there at the Hall
That's
of Fame in
crazy.
Cooperstown. And it was, after they just had the parade and was in like a reception they have there, which is really terrific. If anybody has access to that, it's terrific. And seeing the people, the stars that I grew up watching,
Sure.
and then having chance where Eddie Murray was right there. And I got to give a little assist to LaTroy Hawkins, a good friend of mine with the Minnesota Twins.
Sure.
I told LaTroy that is one of the things I got to, hopefully I can meet Eddie Murray this year finally. And when I walked in the reception area there, while it was all going on, Eddie Murray was there when he was talking to LaTroy. And it was like the timing was just perfect. So I just rolled up right there.
Oh my goodness.
LaTroy introduced me to Eddie right there. And I always told myself, try not to cry when that moment's going to happen, and I stayed strong.
I was like, how'd you do? How'd you do?
It was just wonderful. I just got a chance to I told him how, as a kid, I owe him for giving me a love of the game and wanting to play the game. And got a chance to tell him about some of the work that we're doing. And the toughest part was at the very end of my conversation with him was like, hey, you mind if we get a photo together?
No, you got to do it. Did you do
just
it?
Had to document it, and
you got to do it.
And a lot of my good friends have known over the years how much finally having this chance, how much it meant to me. Because I can remember even back in right around, I want to say 1998 or 99, I remember having a chance to possibly meet him at one point when he was a hitting coach for the Dodgers at the time. And I was scheduled to maybe try to do it. Our general manager with the Braves, John Schuros, was going to make it happen. But it turned out I had a meeting I had to go to off-site that day. So I missed that day when they were coming to play at our stadium during spring training. But just, that was just something. I think it's so important that our kids have heroes that they can look up to and idolize. And, our staff that we have that are involved on the baseball and softball side, led by Tony Regans, who's our chief baseball development officer. And his staff includes Del Matthews, who's a vice president of baseball development, and David James, who runs a lot of our youth stuff as well, with RBI included in that, and the whole group that we have. Sarah Patton, who's done a lot of our softball stuff. Just being able to get kids access to the game is so vital, and that's where I'm thankful that even with my role, I get a chance to collaborate closely with them. So a lot of our different events that we have during the course of the year, I get a chance to just start to lay a foundation and plant that seed with a lot of our young players that are starting their way, whether it's at the Hank Aaron Invitational, the MLB Breakthrough Series, for both boys and girls, getting in front of them and letting them know, hey, there's a career for you. We want you to keep playing the game as long as you can and keep doing it until they take the uniform off of you. But if there's at some point, there's going to be an opportunity where we all have to do that. But at least letting them know there's a pathway for you to have something as a career and stay involved in the game, and something you can do, something that you truly have loved since you were 5 years old, and do it for the rest of your life, being a part of the game in some way, because there's so many different areas that are open and available to you to be a part of something which is truly bigger than ourselves.
No, this is perfect. And one point of order, I also here in Richmond, Virginia, grew up a diehard Orioles fan. Still am. And Eddie Murray, coolest cat. I've never met him, but he's the coolest cat that I've ever followed. I can't say that I'm of the generation where Griffey came and so that whole, like, I was one of those, but Eddie Murray was right before that, and I loved watching him play.
I had a well manicured afro back in 1979, 1982, around that time. So
I was about to say,
sort of like Eddie at that time as well.
I didn't want to get into it, but I was like, there's not a lot of 5-year-olds that look like Eddie Murray, but I was like, but you touched on the employment piece, and I know that's the one of the areas that you're really, really focused on. You've had a lengthy and highly decorated and stellar career in front office through a couple of Major League Baseball organizations. Start with the noun, and I do want you to get into how you got started, and as a young man, I believe it was early 20s or something like that, working in the front office. But when we look at this task of getting more Black people, getting more diversity, getting more women in the roles of kind of the front office in regards to management, whether it's in marketing or even in food and beverage, and even in ways where they can work their ways up and be ultimately an assistant GM, a GM, or even something more and greater. Where are we with that today? Because I often feel like perception doesn't necessarily match reality. I think there's a perception where there's not a lot being done, and I go to the websites at MLB. Like I said, I follow you all around the country on social media. I see the work that's being done. So, and it's been being done. You've had this role since 2000. I want to say 2016. Mm-hmm. So where are we today with increasing diversity in the front office in the game, and talk about a little bit about the initiatives that you have going on to do so, and then we'll backtrack and talk about how you got started.
Yeah, when you look at it from a biggest thing is making sure people have awareness that there's an understanding that there's a pathway for you to be a part of our game and to have a career. And even, and I'll touch base on it a little bit later, but even I didn't fully know what was out there, how to go about this process. And that's where back in 2016, I had been on the club side for 20 years with Atlanta, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. And Commissioner Manfred was putting together the Diversity Pipeline Program. And I initially was asked to be part of just an advisory committee that would be involved in overseeing the role. But when I got more into understanding what they were trying to do, I was like, you know what? I've got to be a part of this. I got to do something that is going to be one. It's just, how can I impact the game, from a really long-term strategy, and be a part of something that could really help just change the face of our game. And when I looked at that and I saw what they were trying to build out, I said, I've got to be a part of this. And I had already been informally helping people, even in my different roles when I was at clubs. I created a group on LinkedIn called the Baseball Industry Network that recently just went over 40,000 members. And
that's amazing.
And I put that group back together back in 2009, with the idea of trying to help people get one step closer to getting into the game, no matter who you are, race, whatever background. But for me, this opportunity to really make some inroads as far as getting people of color and women into opportunities in our game within the baseball operations space to become future GMs, future assistant GMs. That was something I just had to do. The program, since it started, we've been involved in over 400 plus hires since the program started. And we've made some really good strides. We've had over 120 hires just in 2022 alone. Mm-hmm. So that's been some really, really great progress. We went from 80 to 120 plus, in just a matter of a year. But part of that is just really understanding the little avenues of where you can get in the door. And that's where we're trying to educate folks on those opportunities and building awareness. Hey, you can come in through this internship or this different opportunity that's available, even if something that's part-time, different ways to get yourself in the door. You have a love for the game. There is a place for you in this game. And part of my role, it covers a lot of different aspects of being able to, look at somebody's resume, reach out to them, connect with them, find out what they're passionate about, what things that they're really focused on, what they like to do. And sometimes it's just they haven't been fully educated on what all is out there. And that's where we're just trying to lay that foundation for somebody. And then also being able to then put them in a position to get into the process as far as interviewing, talking to teams, looking to the resume, make sure everything is good, giving people assistance to be prepared, even those that are former players, helping them to get ready. And that's a lot of times it's a big challenge for a lot of our former players. Also I work closely with our player programs department with that. And that's where helping to make sure that person is ready, even with folks that are getting close to ending a career, thinking about it, I always tell them, make sure you're ready to move on to this next chapter, understand that. And that's a big part. If you're fully still thinking about, I think I can still play for one more year, then you got to get that out of your system. You have to get that out of your system. So man, just trying to let me help you. Let me help educate you on the process, what teams are looking for, what skills, what experiences, how you can have an impact and how you can provide value for that opportunity, and really just laying that out with people. One of the things we did back in the fall of 2017, we created what's called the Diversity Fellowship Program, which is a full-time postgraduate opportunity for somebody to go straight from college right into a front office and get started into a full-time position.
I chuckle because I tried to apply, then I realized that my me being in my 40s was not gonna help. But I saw that and I really thought, how cool! And you guys just recently, not too long ago, had all the fellows together, right?
Our class, our current class, we're in our third class of the program.
Class, okay.
And so I get a chance to get together with them every couple of weeks. And we actually connected today, actually to talk, kind of have our own little holiday gathering just to talk about things as we get ready for 23. But, the first two classes have helped lay a foundation for things, because right now in the first two classes, we've had a 90% plus success rate of getting people into permanent jobs from that experience. And, it's just trying to find talent, trying to make sure we can make ourselves, one, be as competitive as other industries as far as finding talent, and here's a position that's going to bring you in with both the salary and benefits, and trying to help alleviate some of the burdens that folks have to deal with sometimes. Internships, they're great ways to get in the door, but when you have a chance to come into something that is a full-time opportunity from the start, that's just a big plus for somebody to get going. No, and that's what we try to do as part of that.
No, I'm saying you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I'm trying to be as let the audience, I want the audience to fully know how amazing a program like this is. And this is a program probably, I'm certain that you didn't have when you were growing up. No. It's just such an amazing program. And I'm trying to give it as much praise without hating that I'm ineligible for it, because it really does, it hurts my heart that I can't do it.
It's part of that. One of the things I think back to, so me getting my start, I owe that to Hank Aaron. He's the Hall of Famer and legend. Yep. He created a program called the Career Initiative Program in Atlanta. And that was my taste of getting in the door in baseball. Stan Kasten, also the team president of the Braves at that time, he was very instrumental as well, along with Ruby Lucas. She's the widow of Bill Lucas, who was the first Black general manager, who never officially had the title, but had that role technically with Atlanta during the years. And when I first joined the Braves, it was thanks to that program. I had no clue what a career in baseball looked like when I was graduating from the University of Maryland in 1996. I was in the fall of my last year, I was applying for different jobs that were non-sports related. And I really told myself, what, I've got to do something in sports. I've got to find a way. And I just happened to run across a book called The Internship Bible, which actually still is in existence now after all these years. It's on like its 10th or 11th edition. And they just happen to have a small section on sports teams in it. And I happen to see the Braves program listed in there. And I just I got to apply. I got to try and see what happens.
Are you serious? That's phenomenal. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. I just applied.
And the back of the book.
Yeah. Saw it right there in it. Then sent off the information I needed. At the time, I was actually a photographer in college also. So I was photographing a bunch of sports at the University of Maryland. So I actually included some of my photos that I'd taken from baseball and basketball, things like that, into my little package. And this is back before we had jobs being posted. It just happened. And here I was. I graduated. I remember on graduation day, just standing there. Everybody's talking about they're going into this job or that job and how much money they're going to make and all that. And here I was. Hey, I'm going into an opportunity for $6 an hour.
A very cool one though. People probably wasn't fronting on the Braves.
Yeah, the Braves were very successful. They just won a World Series in '95. So coming into a great organization with John Schultz as the general manager there.
Let me ask this, because oftentimes when you see any industry, I tend to think of kind of high profile industries now. And if you're looking at technology or engineering or something like that, there is a misperception that there is quote unquote a pipeline problem. When you talk to, head CEO of Microsoft or Google or something like that, and they're like, well, we have these programs, but there still seems to be a pipeline problem. And I think research has proven, especially over the last couple of years, is there's not actually a pipeline problem. We have more Black engineers and tech graduates coming more than ever. It is kind of an issue of matching qualified people what the positions, and then having them be able to work together in a meaningful, intentional way. You are tasked with being that bridge. What have you seen? What have you found? What are you looking for candidates, not just in the fellows program, but candidates that want to work in baseball and want to and seem to have the goods? But what are you looking for to match, like to say these are the people we're trying to get in organizations?
Yeah, I mean, a big part is hopefully somebody has they want to learn. They want to maybe hopefully they've had some background related to the game in some form or softball. And they've been they've seen how the game is from that perspective, possibly from competing, but also just if they just want to come in and learn and get a better sense. The biggest part that we're dealing with, we're also competing with every other Fortune 500 company as well for the same talent.
Sure.
Really, I try to tell folks in many cases that if it's about chasing the pure dollar, then you can make more money in other industries, but there's an opportunity being part of baseball, be a part of something, be part of an organization, do something that you're going to get a chance to come in and learn, come in and be a part of something really bigger than yourself, but also have a chance to still make a very good living for yourself and do something that you're passionate about. And you really have to be truly passionate about this game with the time, the hours that you're going to spend to be around the game. So, but just trying to make sure, now definitely technology has played a bigger and bigger role, as far as the skill sets that teams are looking for. Not saying every role you have to have that, but it's obviously something that teams are looking for. A lot of our fellows that have come through, a lot of them are just very gifted as far as having experiences with data, understanding technology. But there's all different ways you can get in the door, and so many different ways. I'll give you a great example. We had an individual who I'll bring him up by name. His name is Jalen Heath. He's actually presently a fellow with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I met him originally as part of my visits. I was at the Andre Dawson Classic back several years back in around 2018. And that's when I first connected with him during that time. He was in the process of graduating, ended up being a valedictorian of the class at Grambling University and a significant baseball player and captain of the team there. And he applied for our fellowship back in 2020. Unfortunately, didn't get it as far as the opportunity, and went into the accounting world. And I didn't, hey, I didn't blame him. Hey, here's an opportunity for you. I stayed in touch with him, was able to help him in his first year, even with his new job, was able to get him helping he went into a seasonal role working at Minute Maid Park, helping with some of our data operations department. It just provided an opportunity to be around the game and just stayed in touch with him, stayed engaged with them. And then finally, our next cycle for the application went through, he applied and bam, here he was. It's funny, when I was down in New Orleans for the Andre Dawson Classic this year in 2022 here in February, the day I show up was the day he got hired as a fellow by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
That's fantastic.
So to be in front of those young student athletes and tell them, hey, this is somebody that just a couple of years before you, I was here talking to that person. And now here's that person getting started with their career in this opportunity. So just finding the little ways to get yourself in the door, and depending on whether you're graduating in December or you're graduating in May, just finding there's little avenues. And that's where my role comes into place to try to help you. And the one thing I look at it, this is all about a journey, and this journey has to start somewhere. And that's where we're trying to help create that opportunity for you.
What is the toughest part about your job? Because it's a tough job. Like we're in many ways, you do, and you've done this for a number of years, and you've talked about it for a number of years. And so I understand when you do it and understand your task, it's very easy to talk about. Sometimes it makes it sound easy, but it's not. It is a very, very hard job that you have, and a very large task that you have. What are the biggest challenges that you face on a day-to-day?
I think probably one of the biggest things is I can do as much as I can to prep somebody to get them ready, but also I don't have the power to say yes in situations. I do as much as I can. They've got to go through the interview process, bring their best self to the process and to the interview. And that's where it's tough. You just so much you want to help as many people as possible, but it's something that I don't have full control to say to put. as much as I can to put a stamp of approval completely on somebody, but still they have to earn that whole process, earn that hire to get that opportunity.
No, that's a good point, because you can't interview for them and you can't hire them, right?
Yeah.
But I completely understand.
I do the best I can to try to, one, making sure that we're bringing people to the table, and make sure if I can find out, hey, truly what areas you're interested in, what things that we can do and assist you in finding your pathway. And then hopefully now I can bring you to the table in front of our 30 major league clubs and give you an opportunity to know. And then even if something's just not, maybe this is not the right fit, then there's other ways that we can help you, whether it's on the business side, if you want to go into that side, whether it's accounting or finance, something. But obviously each person has their own idea of what they think about the game until they fully get to understand what it's all about.
And you've worked, and you mentioned 3 professional organizations prior to this job. And in several roles, it is every time you start to get to a job and you see what it's like, you might identify something, like you said, you may like doing, or even with the role that you're in, it's like starting at an advisory, but say, hey, look, I got to be more involved. How do you go about, Tyrone, making the decision of, this is where I need to be? Like from Atlanta to Pittsburgh, and how did you kind of make those personal decisions? And tell, so people that don't understand, I've done a lot of research prior to this, but Atlanta, you had a couple of roles there that you jumped, because you were in Atlanta for like 10 years, like a decade plus.
Yeah,
right?
I was with them for 11 years.
So talk to me about kind of the short version of kind of your career, but then how did you make those decisions to say, I'm going to move on and do this next thing?
Yeah, I started with Atlanta when I got hired full time. My internship was supposed to be just for the summer, and was very lucky that I got hired a month and a half into the internship. It was just kind of being at the right place, right time.
There you go.
And but also just doing the best of my job each and every day. And when that opportunity came about, I told myself, and I was probably very naive, I told myself I wanted to be a general manager in 15 years. That was the one thing that I just,
that sounds like a great goal. Why would you not do? That sounds like a fantastic goal, but continue on.
Yeah, I told myself that, but as I went along, one, I just wanted to keep growing and learning, and whatever role I went into. And as I got closer and closer to that 15-year mark, I realized it was more about, hey, am I doing something that I love to do each and every day? Do I feel valued? Am I having an impact within the organization? And then just let everything else, if it'll happen, it'll happen, and just, had several different opportunities with, obviously with Atlanta, and then I go over to Cleveland, go to Pittsburgh. And, in Pittsburgh, I had a chance to interview to be a general manager for the very first time with, back with the Milwaukee Brewers back in 2015. And it was like, I was at the time, it was funny, I was actually in Japan at the time scouting players over there for Pittsburgh, seeing players, and I was happened to be on this big road trip. And when I found out, all of a sudden, hey, Milwaukee wants to talk to me about this opportunity. And it's like everything in my head was just spinning, thinking about, oh, wow, this is finally maybe happening possibly, And I just remember like the 13-hour flight and, coming back home and trying to make sure all my ideas were together, things I was thinking about. And spent some time with our team president at the time, Frank Coonley, with the Pirates. He gave me a mock interview that was probably harder than an actual interview. Just going through it, and went through the process. Met with the Brewers in Los Angeles with the owner, Mark Antanasio, where he's based out of, and went through it. It didn't happen, but I learned a ton about myself through that whole experience and going through it. And later on, once I was several years into my current role, I had a chance to I went to interview with the Baltimore Orioles back in the fall of 18. So here was my hometown team that was looking for a general manager, and go through that process. And I felt even better prepared as I went through the process. I had my own deck I'd put together, which I did not do the first time. I had a deck of about 40 pages that I put together, kind of giving my whole vision of what I would be doing to try to help build the organization from top to bottom, and went through it, but it just didn't happen. But it's something for that. I learned a ton from that, from both experiences each time.
And it's crazy about that, because you're talking about your journey and how did you always set your sights on GM and these are the things that are going to get me there? Or was it, hey, we're going to, kind of one step at a time. We're doing this. This would be something that I'm really interested in. And then these opportunities came out, because I've seen it both ways. I've seen folks set goals and say, this is where I want to be at this, at this job, and everything I did. Was it always in the back of your mind through your career about GM, or, or
it was always in my head to some degree, but I always thought about, let me take care of the task I've got in front of me first and foremost.
Absolutely.
What can I do to do my job to the best that I can do? When I became a scout, how can I go about doing my job each and every day to try to find players for our organization? Going through that whole process, doing that. When I went back into the front office, hey, what can I do to help us win? Even when I went to Pittsburgh, I got there, we lost my first year in Pittsburgh, we lost 105 games. I don't wish that on anybody. After all the success we had in Atlanta, where they won 14 straight division titles, and I was there for
some of those battling Pittsburgh.
Of those, I truly appreciated how we were able to put that organization in Pittsburgh, back on the map as far as the winning culture and creating things there and understanding that element. So it was more about, hey, let me take care of the task I have in front of me, but also let me make sure I'm rounding out my skills and building out things for me personally to make me a better person, a better leader, going forward. And if that time does happen, hopefully people will recognize it throughout the industry.
Let me switch gears a little bit and ask you this. And it's oftentimes, especially as you excel through a career, and you excel in a career that kind of more advanced you get, the less people of color you see, the less, diversity or women, the less you see. What is it about? Because a lot of folks, I will say this, a lot of folks will accept what you're seeing as it is, and kind of just say, okay, this is how things are. Clearly that is not the case for you, because you have made it your mission and job to change how those rooms look, to bring up a next generation of Black and brown and women people to walk the path that you've walked. So that's a credit to you. It's a credit to your character. But how did you navigate oftentimes being the only Black face in a room and having to excel and stand out and do all the things that you do to be in the position that you're in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I look at, I was just going to, be myself, be as authentic as I can, continue to build relationships throughout every place that I was working, but also throughout the industry as a whole. I was just one thing I didn't know. I had no clue about maybe the idea of what networking really was when I was in college or anything like that. But later on, just getting a feel and understanding people, getting to meet people and meet them where they are, as one element. We have a huge task ahead of us when you look just in general, when, coming through the pipeline, and this is where I give a lot of credit to my boss. His name is Michael Hill, Senior Vice President for on-field operations with this. And he's tasked with overseeing everything that we're doing from a DEI perspective within the baseball operations side. So, it's part of the work that I'm involved with here at the lower levels of getting people in the door, building that foundation. And then we recently just created a program called MLB University, which is allowing us to have individuals that have now been in it for, 5 to 7 years that have some experience, now helping them, provided some extra tools for them to build their network, in addition to maybe providing extra skills that they maybe have not had access to. And that's an important element as you're making your way navigating. Are you getting access to understanding about contracts, understanding how trades are made? Are you involved in salary arbitration, understanding, how a contract is being put together? Those are important elements that you have to get exposure to help yourself to make your way. And then also, it takes someone else also recognizing, that talent that you do have to help you to give that push. Our office is trying to help do that as well, provide that landscape and an area for somebody to continue to learn and grow. But it's something that it's a huge, huge task. But the one thing you have to do is have that willingness and have that growth mindset. Hey, what else can I add to to my toolbox that can help me moving forward to put myself in the best position possible going forward.
No, absolutely. And just hearing what you're saying, it shows your authenticity, and it shows that, again, easier said than done to walk into rooms that may be uncomfortable and be your authentic self, but you have it seems that you have mastered that, and it's awesome that you are teaching kind of the next generation to do that, because I do think that that's the value that a lot of young people bring, right? That's like, if they're going to be like everyone else, they're going to be treated like everyone else. But that is amazing.
One aspect also, Cheats, is also just making sure that our leaders understand, how much we can help them as far as just understanding, hey, there's value in a diversity of thought and people coming from different backgrounds, at different perspectives, and just trying to lay that foundation also for people to have that kind of a mindset also, which is
absolutely
important. It's obviously it's not the easiest thing, but it's something that we're continuing to try to build out overall.
No, and you know what it is, and it's kind of, at this point, 2022, it's heavily documented. And it's not just baseball, but it's in every industry. If you look at every corporate settings to creative settings, the team that they win, diverse thought wins. And so they have the idea of trying to convince people at this point. It's almost like kind of like a no-brainer in many ways, but it's like which you're exactly right. You often have to convince leadership that's like, look at the makeup of this team that's winning all the time. What do they have that we don't have? And usually it's the diversity of thought. And if we can convince people the right way, I think you're exactly right on that. Mr. Brooks, Tyrone, let me get you out here on a couple of easy ones they're easy for me. They might be hard for you, but I do want to ask, and I ask everyone this, and I love this question. Now, I don't know when you were a player, if you were a pitcher or a field player, position player. There you go. Great. This is perfect then, because as a position player, living or dead, you have the ability to face any pitcher of all time. Who do you want to face and why?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
I've had some crazy answers, by the way, some crazy ones.
Man, I would, back during the 80s, Doc Gooden with that curveball, man.
Yeah, 1985 Gooden. Oh, it's a great one.
That would have been like just a dream scenario to try to face someone that good in town and during that stretch that he had during his time, especially there with the Mets. I mean, just to see that, you watch footage now and you like look back and it's like you have to appreciate just the break of his curveball. I mean, the drop of that thing, and then just the stuff and how he could just dominate a game. For me, that he would be my person that I would be thinking about as far as someone that I would have loved to face during that era.
That's awesome. That's a good answer. That's not a crazy. I've heard so many Bob Gibsons that I was like, "Are you guys mad? What are you doing?" And they were like, "I've seen enough video to be like, you don't want to face Bob Gibson." Everybody's like, "I want to see it." And this is actually an appropriate question for you. Don't get in any trouble, but I ask everybody this, so I'm going to try to keep it uniformed here. Wave a magic wand, and tomorrow you are commissioner of baseball. I laugh because I've read articles that said you may be commissioner of baseball one day. Wave a magic wand, and today you're commissioner of baseball. You have to change one thing about the game. What do you change?
Wow, that's a really tough one there.
It's tougher for you. Yeah. I could be like, oh man, I could make everything.
I think a huge part of what even we're trying to do now is try to just make sure that the pace of the game is sped up and continue. I think more and more younger folks that are coming into the game, or just in general, they're used to things being very, quick, and having, that attention span of maybe being a little bit shorter to some degree, maybe. But I think what the work that's being done to try to speed up the game, because literally games have gone from 3 hours to this year testing in the minor leagues to being 2.5. So coming up with the new pitch clock that's going to be in place in 23, that's something that, ideally with that's going to help continue just to have the game being sped up, but obviously still enjoying the experience of, me, I still love going to a baseball game and having that
Absolutely.
opportunity to, and just enjoy the aspects of being at a ballpark, having a hot dog, enjoying the game, watching the action unfold. So it's going to be interesting how we move going forward, including, now with the shift being taken away.
Sure.
That's going to be interesting too, just to see. I came in also into an era especially when I joined the Pirates, where we started doing a ton of shifting during that era, and that kind of led to continued, use of the shifter route, and just to see what kind of effect that does have going forward, if that just increases the offense in the game.
I'm going to let you slide, and I'll tell you what. Look, I'll tell you why. Because of course we want the game to be faster. Is there something that you would do to make the game faster?
No, I think a lot of it has already been
right. That was like, instead of 4 balls 3. Yeah. I don't know. No, I also chuckle because you were talking about youth games and the speed of those games. Those games are faster. But I have an 8-year-old. If you've ever seen an 8-year-old kid pitch game, there's a pace to this that is.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. I have a daughter who she was playing baseball from ages from 8 to 10. So I know that, and then I have a son he'll be 8 coming up. He's playing right now, so I know what I've seen there.
There's some slowdown there. There's some walking. All right. As we move on. That was a good one. Who is now? You've already mentioned your love for Eddie Murray, and Eddie Murray is a cool individual, cool cat. I know he's your hero growing up, but would you say, if you had to pinpoint a player today that you think could usher in a wave of fandom for Black players, young Black kids, who would you point to? Who would you say, for an 8-year-old kid, you should be watching this guy?
For me, I have to really think about Mookie Betts. I think with him, because of it just shows you, you don't have to be 6'3", you don't have to be 6'4", you can be 5'9", 5'10", and you can have a long career in this game and be productive and just use your natural athleticism that you may have, and also just come in, learn the game, and just the way he's able to do so many different things well is something that I just really enjoy watching. And I think any kid should be able to look at him and say, you know what, I can do this too. When I can see he's making catches in the outfield, he's hitting balls, getting hits, hitting home runs, timely hits, being a clutch player, steal a base when he needs to. Those are the kind of things I think any kid should hopefully gravitate toward and see that, you know what, I can do this also.
No, I think he's a great answer. I think he's also a great example for young people. I think back, obviously, this year, the All-Star game, Mookie Betts is in LA, and he's encouraging more Black people to come to the stadium and doing it in a way that for me to watch it and say, this is not only one of the biggest players in the game, but he is encouraging, letting folks know that we want you here and you're welcome here. And I really don't know. You're somebody that's been in a front office of several organizations. I don't even know if that's top of mind. Like, I know it's top of mind to sell tickets. I know it's top of mind to get, the community involved in supporting the club. But I wonder, is it top of mind for enough clubs to say, how do we kind of specifically say we want diversity in the stadium? Is that something that clubs think about, you think?
I think clubs themselves in general are looking, hey, what can we do to make sure we cater to as many different, a different audience throughout the year, and finding ways to do so. Whether it's you're having an HBCU night or something, you're having it, say in Atlanta or some other cities, different things you can do to engage, to make sure people feel, one, you want to feel represented, and that, hey, you're thinking about me. I see myself also represented on that field, on that diamond. That's a huge element of that. But I think everybody's looking for ways to make sure we can bring more people to the game. I remember even a couple of years ago, some things that were mentioned as far as getting more kids, to the ballparks, and seeing certain clubs have had some really great promotions to do that, help make sure kids are getting access to the games. That's so important. I think as much as we can do to do that, and also a lot of our different MLB academies, which different clubs are involved in operating, in addition to the ones that we were involved with in New Orleans and Compton, finding ways to make sure those kids get a chance to see closely, what's out there for them and understand further about, hey, there's an opportunity for me, and I can be part of this also.
Absolutely. What would you like to see? I know at this point it's almost I don't know. Maybe I should ask, but I kind of almost feel like it's almost odd at this point for someone like yourself to quote unquote set goals. But I do know that you probably have goals, visions, or ideally 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what you would like to see from the work that you're doing with the pipeline. Say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what are some of the things you would like to have seen based off of the work that you're doing now?
I think a big part is just one, continuing to see individuals get into leadership roles, continue to make strides, making progress. We had our very first member of our fellowship class this year in 22 was the first person to become a director. And Albert Gilbert, who's with the Rockies, he was with the Dodgers originally through the fellowship program, went to the Rockies to be a director of baseball operations for them. So that was like another first for us, and we're gonna have a series of firsts happening continually. But the biggest thing is having folks getting into an opportunity to grow, and then seeing, it just doesn't happen overnight. It as I mentioned earlier, man, it took me basically almost 20 years.
Yeah,
I go like a little bit less than that to go through the interview process to become a general manager. It takes time. You have to continue. You have to pay your dues, and obviously put in the work, and then also continue to be building relationships both within your organization, people that are recognizing the work that you're doing. They see each and every day, but also you're building relationships with people throughout the industry as a whole, and sort of building a reputation for yourself going forward. So it's something that, even from a player perspective, everybody, will talk about, hey, this is what the percentage is right now as far as players in the big leagues, but it doesn't happen overnight. Tony Regan's and the group that we have, the work that they're doing each and every day, it's every year we're seeing new things happen. And you look at this past year's draft, for the first
we talk about it a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
Players of color, and just to have that's a huge, another really great feat to happen. That's things are happening in a positive manner. Things are happening going forward. So that's all we have to do is keep pushing forward and keep adding whatever we can, other additional resources, things that we can make it so we can continue to see progress happen.
Tyrone, I'm going to get you out of here on this one. This is a completely personal question, and don't worry. Tell Major League Baseball not to worry. You're not going anywhere. You've been doing this job for a while now. You're doing a fantastic job. But I'm going to ask you, if you had a choice between one, based off of our conversation, do you pick GM or commissioner of baseball?
I'd have to pick the commissioner role. Just you have
just go to the top. Go to the top.
Yeah.
Be GM of everyone.
The commissioner's doing a great job in the work he's doing, and the staff he has around him. That's tremendous. So, but that would be, just a chance to really build a legacy in how we're continuing to grow the game, and also just continue to make strides throughout all different aspects of our game going forward. It's obviously a huge task that the commissioner is dealing with that role. But obviously, you're trying to do as much as you can. Obviously, you can't make everybody happy, but you have to do the best you can to keep pushing the game forward.
Well, look, I appreciate your time. I'm going to get you out of here on this. You are actually pretty active on social media. Tell everybody where they can follow you and learn all the things that you're doing and see them like I see them.
Yeah, very much. Just very much so. Definitely the opportunity to get in front of people, use social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. You'll see me under Tyrone Brooks. You also can look me up and look up my group, the Baseball Industry Network. You can also find me on Twitter at TBrooksBIN, which is the Baseball Industry Network. So we have over 40,000 members in the Baseball Industry Network. So hoping they continue to provide an opportunity for people to get one step closer to where they want to get to, but also just being a part of our great game and the great relationships that we're able to build with people throughout. So glad to be a part of this, and thank you so much for the invite.
No, thank you so much for taking the time. This is Tyrone Brooks, Major League Baseball. His title is too long for me to go through all of it, but please look him up on social media. It is truly, truly an honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, This is Mixtape Talk, another episode in the books. I am excited about where we're going in 2023. So make sure you follow Black Baseball Mixtape everywhere and make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, we see you.